Good morning and thanks for being with us on this Tuesday. I'm Vanita Nair.
And I'm Rob Nelson. Security here in the U.S. is being stepped up after that terror warning in Europe. Local law enforcement across the country are now tightening security on trains and mass transit.
In the meantime, a U.S. missile strike has killed 5 German militants in Pakistan. Their al-Qaeda-linked plot is what triggered the security alert in the first place. Brian Ross has more on the U.S. attack on the militants.
The target was one of the terror training camps, where a contingent of German citizens of Afghan and Turkish descent had been preparing for jihad against Europe. U.S. officials say some have already been dispatched, likely those with their faces obscured in this propaganda tape. But Pakistani officials told ABC News that at least 8 Germans, including a group commander, were killed by CIA missiles launched from an unmanned aircraft.
I think that several people who were involved in the plotting have been targeted, and the others are certainly on the radar of U.S., Pakistani, and European intelligence services.
U.S. authorities say they have tracked one of the suspected terror cells to the German city of Hamburg. One of the suspects worked as a cleaner at the Hamburg airport, and many also attended the same mosque in Hamburg where the 9/11 hijackers gathered. To the amazement of U.S. officials, it turns out that one of the mosque's leaders is the same man accused by the U.S. 9 years ago of helping to finance the 9/11 plot, Mamoun Darkazanli.
The mosque went back to being a very radical place where people are recruited for attacks, where attacks are discussed. And German intelligence apparently stopped looking closely at the mosque where a lot of 9/11 was planned.
Darkazanli, who was never charged by the Germans,
Amerikanischen Fernsehen ABC News,
declined to comment about the latest plot when approached by ABC News.
Einfach nur sprechen ohne Kamera.
The question now is, will the team of terrorists proceed with their attack, given the alerts and warnings being issued by the U.S. and European countries? Authorities say the group is on a timetable, has already conducted surveillance, and been given a go-ahead to attack, leading to concerns that the attack may be imminent. Brian Ross, ABC News, New York.
And American tourists in Britain appear to be paying attention to the State Department's warning to be extra cautious. David Muir spent the day talking to visitors in London.
Here in London and across Europe, the invisible surveillance. American tourists heeding the State Department warning and keeping a close watch over what's around them.
And that is the same bell.
The Maxwells from Chicago actually left one site here in London after noticing a suspicious man.
Carrying a bag in an area I thought he shouldn't be. We kind of hurried on.
So you've been looking around?
Actually, we do, yes.
This couple from Phoenix lined up for the Tower of London, even with so many historic sites now in the headlines.
One of them was the Tower of London, and you mentioned you went here today, so it didn't stop you.
No. At Buckingham Palace, careful crowds, but there were still crowds. In Paris, a similar picture outside the Eiffel Tower. Tourists, even after the tower was evacuated again last week. In Germany, crowds in front of Berlin's Brandenburg Gate. The State Department is encouraging Americans to let U.S. embassies know they're coming. U.S. authorities told us they've seen a significant spike. Sunday alone, more than 8,000 American travelers signed up. Before the alert, the average around 1,500.
There's a danger of crying wolf, of course, and people just ignore these warnings and then they have no effect at all.
But he says when there's mounting evidence, an alert eye can also make all the difference, and it has before. Times Square just this year. The T-shirt vendor who noticed smoke coming out of that vehicle filled with explosives. December last year, the underwear bomber and the passengers on a Northwest flight who noticed him trying to ignite his clothes, and they pounced. And it was here in London 3 years ago an ambulance crew smelled something and then uncovered a car full of explosives parked near Piccadilly Circus. So close to catastrophe, but in each one of those cases, it was an alert bystander who made all the difference. And authorities say no matter how broad, how vague this current alert is, they're hoping that extreme vigilance can make the difference this time, too. David